Well, hello, Dr. Contrast, and welcome to the Dream Labs. How's everybody doing? Just want to take a moment here to say that we had a bit of a delay here, and all of a sudden I just lost the sound on the camera, but got it back here. But I just thought we'd take a moment here and thank you for tuning in today. And I want to go back to last week just for a moment and review just a few things here. And I'm going to take some time today to go back into phase two, getting refining and adjustment some of the processes we did last week. Last Wednesday we had a whole series of paper sculptures, for example, in the third dimension for architecture, and the idea was to take those guys and just kind of begin to translate them into certain things, like, for example, how to develop shape, how to massage them, how to stretch them, how to look at certain surfaces within each one of these. So as of today, I just went back and again I just picked up I just made some selections here based on the conversation we had last week about wrapping in the whole program up. We had 6 finals to do, 6 pages rather, having 6 sculptures of architectural pieces, and we took the time to go through each one and explain how we got there. And after last Wednesday stream, I just decided, let's look at 3 of these guys, see if we can do something about getting it all squared away, and begin doing some refinement things here for today's stream here. So that's what you're going to see here today. I started here with just a real quick review. This was one of the neat ones, but this one was interesting because it had, even though we looked at this guy, this became the final selection here, study here for today. But if you look at this guy, there's a very strong pediment here. And I broke it down in a series of planes, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and into 3. And the more I look at this thing, it really looks like this. You've got that pediment, and then that shape here, and it comes right down to that one real strong form in there. So that became part of the refinement process, where we actually took this shape and just combined that into one great big huge dart form coming off that shape itself. So that was part of the process of number 1. So I'll come back to these in just a moment. I just want to real quickly review where we were putting it all together for us here. So that was one of the selections we made from last week. And then I'll go back and get these numbers out of the way here for a moment. There we go. And now we got that guy down. There's one. And I think the second one we did here, off the same page, actually, taking the same theme and doing something like, for example, this was a very strong statement here, this pediment area. Let's move this over just a little bit. And I thought, well, let's go a little bit more. Let's make this a little more organic. Let's kind of crank that thing over and pick up the same series of planes underneath here. And oops, let me move this back in that page here again. Planes in through here and begin to just refine it underneath that shoulder shape that comes over the top here. So that's what this does. And then that little tail section could have been a prominent area or an entry area of some sort for the actual piece itself. This one I'm just kind of waiting a judgment on here. I've got some thoughts on this guy, but I didn't pick it for today to kind of develop. We might look at it near the end of the session here today, but this is interesting how that was the second one we did here. And the last one we did was this guy, where we actually took these beauties, and this is from study number 6, like a paper sculpture, very sheer, very organic looking, very stealth-like looking image. And again, we started, for example, it was here, then went through a series of thumbnail studies and went through and just took some areas here to kind of develop a little further. So those basically were the 3 pieces that we looked at here today for just getting some idea of how to take this in the next generation, to look at how to refine the selections we've made. And if we're good with them, great. If not, we'll kind of readjust as we go from week to week here. But I really want to I planned on today is taking these things from where we were last Wednesday and refine them into slowing them a little bit down, and then actually taking full advantage of being able to massage them, alter them, stretch them a little bit, compress them a little bit where you need to, and to get some good theme structure down here. And the process that we're looking at here throughout the course of the day here. So that was number 6, and let's go back. Next step, I went from those 3 selections, after looking at them very carefully, I went, okay, let's look at some real quick thumbnail revisions or adjustments to these shapes we're looking at for maybe final selections on this architectural piece. So this is it. Let's go that here. Let me get these guys in order. I'll come back to them, refer to them as we go from sketch to sketch. The next thing we did was this. We took a look at some of this stuff, and I just broke them down into, let's get rid of this for a moment. I broke them down into certain areas. For example, this is number 1 again, looking at certain sketches or thumbnail studies based on, all right, if we took that number 1, which again, let's go back to this guy, just to kind of give you some reference here. If we went back to this shape, which is this guy here, what does that start to look like when you begin to massage it? It changes its character quite a bit, which I think is part of the process. I mean, just because, let me go back and review for just a moment here, offer an opinion. Just because we set up a paper sculpture translated it, doesn't mean that's a final addendum to the actual process of completing the actual sketch itself or the theme study. So the idea of being able to massage it, change its character, and really change its demeanor, so to speak, or its presence is really vital, especially in a case like this, because it's far too organic, I believe. But again, refining it from there to these studies, you'll see in a moment here. This is it. This is number one, page number one. I selected A for one as a reference, and then also on the same set of same page, element B. I'm going to notice that the character is the same. We still have that pediment or that foot to kind of work with in both cases, but we also changed the character, like a hood or a gauntlet over the top of the actual form itself. Became part. Hey, how you doing? Hey, Shadowkin, how are you, man? Good to see you. Are you feeling better? Hopefully that's going to be okay. I understand that you had a bit of a rough time here, and I had a problem with the mic going on me, but I just shut it down and it started again, so we're in great shape. So everything good? Thanks for joining forces today. Hope you're feeling better. So once we got that down, back to the study again. This was really a paramount piece of it. I think this shape had a lot of character. This was really important. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4 planes in there. Breaking that down into one and then maybe stretching this tail section out was much more formidable. So let's look at that. There's number one. Let's put this out of the way here for a moment. But I went back and refined that sketch by doing this. This is number one. This is 1A from that initial study. Again, notice the same pediments there, but this hood or wrap over the top of the shape gives it kind of a gauntlet look. And then the form underneath it can be a big promenade or exhibit area, and the entry area here. Maybe not. Just look at maybe some way of resolving that shape to keep it nice and simple. And you've noticed, again, back to this original, this guy had a real odd-looking tail section on the thing. It went uphill, so I just took that shape and just kind of cranked it down and went in the other direction with it, kept it very horizontal. So that was part of the process for number one here. Now the second one, I went a little crisper with it. Now it's much more angular. Again, kept the same pediment. But I put a crossover, like a canopy over the top of that, and then out of that projecting the shape and into a glass structure, and into a bridge, and again into an area behind it all. So those were the studies for number one. I'll keep those out for a moment here. And number two was interesting. Let's go back to number two here for a second. Number two was, let me find these guys here. Keep them all organized, we should be good. Number two was this family of forms right here. These are guys that, now I noticed, number two, interesting here. Hey, Antares, how are you, man? Good to see you, Antares. How are you? By the way, before I start here, Antares, and go further with this conversation, today's a little bit more refinement side of getting the adjustments down on some of the shapes we're doing. But I want to take a special thank you to you for the beautiful set of circumstances and sketches and outlines you did on reviewing the work from last week. Your input on those sketches you sent me were incredibly beneficial. You broke them down. You had yays and nays, likes and dislikes. So based on your input, so greatly appreciated. I took the time today to work with your input, and I went back and refined the stuff we're doing here for today's stream. So it's a matter of getting that input from you and looking at me and just kind of saying, okay, how do we massage this? How do we keep this simple, but yet still maintain the paper sculpture that we're after? So thank you very much, Antares. Great work, as usual. Really appreciate you being on board. You as well, Shadow. And I'm glad you're feeling better. So again, this is element number, the second page from the sketches taken on element 6. And I went back in and picked a couple of pieces up here. I thought, I'd be kind of interested in it too. Maybe it's interesting to see what this might do here. Maybe it's this guy right here. I picked that guy out. This was the third one done right here. Picked that guy up as a possibility. And then I went back in and said, okay, maybe the fourth one might be this overlap where you get this big, huge wrap on this thing where you take this shape here and you start to do some interesting things with it. So that's it. I mean, again, I can't stress enough, when you start this whole idea, when you start the whole concept of putting an idea together, thanks for pinging the Discord. Somebody is trying to, no, not a problem at all. I just had some problems getting it started with the difficulty today, and Terrace with the mic going out, and I think Shadow did a nice job of restoring it. If you did that, so thanks very much, Shadow. Much appreciated. So from that element number 2, let me bring that back in again. It was a very, very different approach, much angular, much more stealth-like, and I wanted to keep that flavor. So I picked the first one, for example, of doing this guy right here. I thought, this is interesting. Maybe it's a case of doing this guy here as a selection, and another one maybe this guy right here. We actually that's right here. So those two became really important in terms of being able to kind of remodel. Let me back to the shape here. So it's that was a selection, and that was a selection. It's a little bit too blocky, a little bit too abstract, way too thin, too lean. So that was number 2. And then I went back in and said, okay, what if we modify these shapes by doing the shapes, for example? See, getting into this, where it's much long and very thin, but here very, very stealth-like and geometric in terms of having character to it. And the other one was interesting was this one. This overlap here. This whole shape sneaks underneath this envelope of this parapet over the top of the piece itself, and begins to put a new news to it. So I thought that was pretty interesting in terms of how that all worked out. So that was number 2. Interesting how that worked out. So, and then I'll go back to these in just a moment here. This is page number 2. The third one, to me, this one was almost the clumsiest one of all. I had a real hard time with this, not from the point of view of translating it, but making some sense out of the shapes. This is the original, for example. Let's go back and look at where that one was here. It was right here. Yeah, this is the original. I think this is where it started. I mean, this sketch right here became one of the anthems for this whole operation. Now, it's a bit fractured here because there are 2 different operations going. So maybe the idea behind it when I looked at this initially was to go back in and say, okay, let's make this a strong element right here. This is very dome-like thing, but maybe we use that both ways and keep it symmetrical, but change the character of it a little bit. So that's what I did in this next page here. This page really deals with, for example, this is where we started. Again, very strong. Then this overlay, this bridge, so to speak, into another secondary shape. But maybe it's more of this, where you come back in and make that shape part of the whole process, but reverse the angle. And by the way, too, Antares, that piece you sent on this one with that bone structure was really helpful. And that's what kind of motivated the look and turn this thing into some of these studies down below here. I'm not quite sure we want to go with this yet, but we'll make some decisions, I'm sure, before the end of the day. And if not, we'll look at it next week in terms of if we keep it in the mix. We should do that. So I don't know. Get your opinion here, Shadow and Terrace. Do you think this is a merit? Do you think this theme is a merit to continue to pursue, or is it just out of the envelope of where we need it? This is too far. Are these too far from the actual concept itself? Again, I'll try to pick up this theme right here as a strong element and really work with it all the way through. Changing the module, for example, and the character, the actual shape itself. So I'll just hold on a minute here to get your feedback on this. Does it merit a change? Do we need that? Should we go ahead and look at another approach? Are some of these guys kicking a little bit, or is it just kind of a futile effort here? Before I move on a little bit here, middle 2 sketches on plate 2, and also middle 2 sketch plate 3. Middle 2 sketches on 2. Middle 2 sketches. So yeah, that one. Plate 2, that one. Plate 2 is, let's get the pen to work here. We got it. That's a good one. And then the middle 2 on that one. There you go. That helps. And again, let's see, plate 2 and 2 on plate 3. That one, and that one. That's interesting. That's where I think those 2 I selected as well. I mean, I was undecided. I thought this is way too disjointed. Didn't have the same flow to it as the others have here. But I think this one and this one has some potential. I kind of like the idea of having this guy really exaggerating that stretch. And maybe to me, this is a stronger suit here because it's a lot more low profile, a lot more drama to it, but it has a symmetry about it, but as a counterpoint to it that I think is really interesting from an architectural point of view. So we'll begin to develop these 2 just to make sure. And put a little asterisk right here. That's a good one, and that's a good one. How about you, Shadow? You still with us? We have a chance to look at these guys. Do you think there's any merit in one of these guys here? And Terrace picked middle 2. How do you see them? Hopefully, I'll just wait a moment here and we'll move on just a bit. Pretty cool. Good. So middle 2 on 3, and anything on plate number 1 at all, Terrace? While I'm here, you missed on number 1 or anything you guys picked up on number 1. It might be I picked the bottom 2. Because of the difference of the character. Maybe I'm out of agree. The top sketch on plate 3 is a bit disjointed, but I think there's not enough fence on one side or the other. Yeah, I think that's exactly what I thought too with this guy. The competition was just too abstract. Didn't have any really synergy about it. But as these guys, I think just changing gears and saying, this is the way we approach it. Again, let me be careful to point this out. Even though we started here with a paper sculpture that had this kind of character to it, it does not disjoint the fact or destroy the fact that we can take that basic theme, as we said at the beginning of the program here, refine and adjust them as we go. We can stretch them and take that theme and build that around it instead of adding this element to it. So there's a lot of flexibility there that's really good. So number one, the bottom sketch, yeah, this guy right here, I thought that was interesting too. So that's a winner. Let's see, bottom sketch on plate 1 is cool as well. There you go. So let's do this and put that in an asterisk. So good selections here, guys. It was really helpful. And I think it's really important for me to bring up the fact too that when I go through this process, I'll see things a certain way. And I've said this before several times on that program. I think it's really great to have input like yourself and Terrace and Shadow, looking at this stuff and saying, no, maybe, and what if? That's important stuff. And I think I don't want to get locked in and saying, well, this is what I think is great, because 9 times out of 10 it's not. But I think the idea of having interface and conversations with people like yourself who are very talented and skillful, big help in putting the whole program together. So let me move along here real quickly. We'll come back and refer to these plates 1, 2, and 3. These are just real quick analytical studies from where we were last week, just to kind of give us some idea of where we want to take this. Now, the real task is here, no matter what takes place. Let's move these right there so I can refer to them. This was interesting. This is now, pardon me, getting into the drama. All right, now you've got an elevation that looks like this, right? There's an elevation, just straight on. What does it look like in the plan view? How do you translate this thing into a plan view? So I started with sketch plate number 1 and picked these 2 selections here and moved them into a plan view. So what do you think here, guys? There it is in plan view. There is A and B in plan. Notice how the drama changes. I mean, it's a bit on the odd side, but I think, again, this idea, let me go back to this one here. This is element A, which is this guy here. There's element A. What I thought was interesting about this was that this whole idea of having this gauntlet or this glove over the top of the form and this thing sneaking underneath it, this form underneath it, looked pretty interesting. So there we are. There it is. There's that same gauntlet, for example, over the top of that shape, and then there's that secondary form. Here's the gauntlet, rather. Here's the form, and then we kind of snuck that out of there and said, you know what? Maybe it's not so much this ladder form and this little ending here. Maybe we can stretch this even further and make it a real interesting site plan in terms of what do we do with this guy. And then again, let me organize these guys a bit here. Pardon me, just get regroup. But again, coming back to this entry piece here, this is the pavilion area. Come up, then step inside this area here. This is all closed and into a walkway into the promenade area. And notice too, what I thought was interesting about that A was that little cutback right here, where that actually cut back like a beak of some sort. Really, whoa, it's right. I mean, it's really dramatic, and I think that's a great thing about architecture in a sense, because you can fool you. Yeah, it might be static here, but my whole intent of this from last week to this week was to take those sketches, adjust them, alter them, make them still truthful to the paper sculpture we dealt with, which we did. They're still there. On page 1, and then really begin to look at the plan view and say, whoa, this could really be interesting. Now, that could be an interesting site plan. Even more interesting is, and I haven't even thought about this yet, I just wanted to get these down for today's stream, was this. What if the contour changes? What if the land contour changes? It's going to influence what these forms are going to look like, how we float them, and how things are going to, just interesting stuff, how this goes all together. So there was A, and then again, this is B. Let me go back here. This was sketch B right here, and then let's move this right there with it, so I can get this out kind of up in the area, and get it up in the same film plane here. There's B, and there's B there. This is it. This is B. Here's the translation of plan view. Now notice, this glove area here still have the pediment, which is here, but also it moves up, and then this shape, you don't see it in the elevation. That shape comes up over the top and then wraps down, and then it comes right back and kicks into that shape here. And then this guy is that form right here, coming into this, which is now that. Now, isn't it funny how it all comes together? And how you really begin to see this stuff. And these are 2 winglets, for example, that might be conference rooms or whatever. And then again, I saw an entryway into another pavilion here, into the staircase area here. That's a little bit on scale. Into a glass menagerie coming in, that's my entryway into it. It might be 2 entries, one here and one there. So let me stop. What do you think, guys? It's asymmetrical. Yeah, it really is. It's really interesting. So let me reread that again. So the uppermost root section on A is asymmetrical in plan view. Yeah, absolutely asymmetrical. I mean, it looks like it's symmetrical here, but it really shifts gears and kind of rips over the top of that. And that shadow right there is represented by this shadow right here. That's the wrap over coming into that whole form, which drops into the shape. Then this lower piece comes in and hugs it, which is reflected, pardon me, right here. That's that lower shape coming into that pediment, that footprint area. So does that help to answer the question, and Terrace? Good? So far, so good? This has really been a lot of fun. I mean, the real challenge is to get that thing really wild. I love it. I love the first ones, but the second one is this second one. This is much more aggressive shadow. Is that what you're referring to, or is it not? Am I reading the wrong one here? We'll take both. Yeah, I think that's interesting. How again, there's translation of A is one thing. There's A to A, and then there's B to B. So I mean, it just really, yeah, got it. That's good. Thank you. And yeah, it is asymmetrical. Now, it might be a little clumsy. We might tighten that down a little bit. Keep refining this thing and open it up. But I think maybe this gets a bit more bolder. It's bolder rather. This becomes a water feature here. This becomes a water feature here. And again, this is another big pavilion coming out. And then again, a counterpoint from geometry to a very round form into a round form. So it kind of complements a little bit, gives a little bit of counterpoint. So I'm going to stop here for a moment, guys. I hope I'm not over talking these things. Am I making sense at all, hopefully? I'm just going to get quiet for a moment. And again, we didn't do here, and notice I indicated, this is neat too, how, notice in this shape here, this form in B, this whole latitude over the top, this whole wrapping piece comes over the top of the building. Now, what's interesting is, I mean, looking at the plan view, look how that shoulder comes, and that glass sneaks right through, which is a continuation of this plane right here. It just sneaks right through. So interesting. I would have thought to fan out. I wouldn't have thought to fan out the end, but on B. But I like that. Good. It's just a fan. Now maybe it's not. Maybe it should be more severe. I don't know, but I think just keeping the scale right. I kept everything, obviously, in this case, both cases, I kept everything off that basic center line, which is pretty strong balance here. So interesting to kind of work with here. But again, these wings or appendages, those forms, for example, will be, for example, this shape and this shape is that form underneath coming in. And again, there should be another cut line. There should be another break line right here, which I'll have to modify it as we go here. But I'm really looking at trying to get much more adventuresome in the plan. I mean, the paper sculpture, let's go back to week 1. The paper sculptures were dramatic. That was fun to deal with. It gave us some insight as to how to change the shape and how to develop architecture in the 3rd dimension without sketching it. All these sketches now are as a result of putting those paper sculptures together that are absolutely invaluable. To me, that's a great tool to work with. So now, we went from there into selecting some studies last Wednesday, into getting some more refinements from those studies into these studies here in small sketch form, then taking those small sketches and putting into a translated plan view. So there's 1 and 2. That was from plate 1. Both these studies came from that family of forms right there. Now, here's another one. This is interesting. Now, this is where it really gets dramatic here. There's one. There's another one. This is from plate 2. This is from plate 2. All of a sudden, look at how these things begin to change dramatically. There it is. So I picked up this one. I picked up, for example, I picked up this guy here, C, which is this, and D, which is this. Now, and Terrace, you like this and this. We could look at those two. There's time to do all that. But interesting, this is plate 2, and I'll keep that aside for a moment. And this is the plan view of element C, which is this first sketch right here. There it is. There it is in elevation, and there it is in plan view. So I'm going to stop there for a moment. And again, notice these changes of pace. Let me pick up just for a moment, one more time. This shape right here, this portion of the sketch right here is happening right up front here. That overlap comes into here. Now this glass is on the side, but as this wraps over the top and the side and the elevation, it picks up the same shape on the body form as you go. The hard angles, I mean, really interesting. So interesting thing. Thank you, Shadow. Number 2, it's just interesting how it all comes together. Really sheer looking, different set of circumstances that we've got here. So there was C, and then this is D down below here. D is this guy right here. Now, there's a lot of interacting plane. This portion right here, I just stretched a little bit and got it to kind of bring it out a little bit further. And we got it, and there she is there. So there is, now I didn't put any softscape in here yet, which means like some of the trees and pondings. This is now, we can kind of go to a dual bridge and do a little bit of a bridge here and pick this guy up and bring a look at this. There's a nice little pond area here that does the same thing. And we've got some kind of a water feature to go through the whole thing. Then when you have that, you start to soften it off a little bit by coming back in and putting a lot of landscaping around it. And again, and through here. And again, back in through here. Just adding softness to it all and take some of the curse off. Now, what's missing here, for example, are sidewalk approaches. Maybe add some of these things to it. We still have things to add to these sketches, but they've got a lot of character to it. Interesting how it all comes together. So if you look at this now, this whole shape, let's go back to this guy just for a moment here. 2B, let me get this. 2B or not to be is right here. But notice, this glass comes underneath here. Now what you don't see in this view, this plane right here is where that's going to take place. It sneaks underneath, and then that triangle is happening right in through here. So it's all there. It's a matter of getting all the pieces together and getting a good strong hold on what the plan view might look like, and then take it from there. So interesting things as we develop as we go here, guys. So plan views are interesting. Now the real fun part is going to be if I might spend another week, for example, looking at some of these plan views for next week and just make sure we get some good hard edge copies in here and some good direction to take it from step 1, which is all sculpture, into 2, refinement, and then 3, into maybe adjusting it again, into some perspective studies. This is going to be really a lot of fun in perspective. When you put the landscape down and you put the format in, it's going to change the character. I see these very large avenues, for example, maybe exhibit halls or museums of some sort, but really a lot of fun in terms of challenging here. And last but not least, this little change of pace here, this square entry module, for example, or amphitheater of some sort. This could be an open court in here, and again, we can open up the roof and some of this. This could be all open as well. So there's the changes we can make into the actual piece itself. And then notice, this translates, this overlap right here comes, that shape, which is this shape up on top. We have, even though it's pretty sheer, there's a line up on top that we picked up here. Now this guy comes right over the top, and this shape slides underneath that form, so it's one on top of the other. So those are the things we have to refine yet. So Shavik, page 2. Oh, Starfleet at headquarters. Yeah, good. That's interesting. Sorry. So those are the two that now let's go back to this guy for a second. We covered page 2 and 3. I've had a chance to take a look at maybe number 3 and what that might do here. So I've just put together, I'm going to start just analyzing with the 2 here that you guys like here, and just see, let's start one here for today. There's that guy. Now let's do this. Let's take a look at this thing right here. Here's my center line, for example. I laid that out already. Center line. Let's take a look at this guy right here. This first study. What does that start to look like? Does that not look like this? And in between all that, now notice, we've got that shape coming up of this form right here, so maybe that hood line comes up. And picks up this guy. Maybe this gets exaggerated just a little bit further. Maybe this guy does the same thing. Maybe this gets... Let's go a little deeper with this. Pardon me, get this back on the page here. Turn this up just a bit here. Turn this up just a touch. Let's clean this up just a bit. Got so many lines to work with here. Just gonna get this guy all straightened up just a bit. All right. Let me get this guy. Let's pick up this beauty here. Get this back to square here. No, that's just a first pass at this thing. A quiet dock is a busy dock. Yes, I am, so far as the specific shapes. I can envision it as a concert hall or something. Yeah, what do you think? I mean, it's a start, but it's one way of looking at those two shapes that we've got here. Maybe it's a matter of going back in this thing, and the plan view being a less, maybe it's just this is all fuller, and you don't see anything underneath, and we do all the work on the ceiling here. That's a bit of a stretch here, but I think it gives us an idea of what those forms could look like. And again, this could be all promenade here. This is all soft hardscape here, etc. And then inside that, you can actually do little rows of trees and keep it pretty solid in terms of, there it is. So you've got one overlap in doing this, and the other one coming in and doing that, and then overlapping. So interesting how maybe that's all part of it. Maybe that's just it. Maybe that's just it. I mean, maybe we take this out of here and keep that pretty straightforward in terms of maybe this one key is here and one key is here. And we just kind of connect the top and the branch here. Maybe that's just it. And then maybe just a little bit more exaggeration on the second guy. And then we break up the ceilings with this kind of thing here. We actually do this and then break it here. Maybe that's the secret. I'm not sure. I mean, I really have to look at this thing. Like it a lot. Yeah, it's very interesting sculptural piece. I'm not going to get away with a lot of this hair. Maybe instead of being negative, maybe that's what's doing it. Maybe this is instead of being negative here. Let's kind of change gears here, just for a second. Let's make this a texture change up on top. That's just a texture change. I'll get this back in place here. And then maybe this becomes the actual that looks a little cleaner. I'm just giving it almost like a cat's eye up on top there. And the same with this. Let's do this. Let's get this guy into place here. Maybe this is, let's just modify this and on the fly, just kind of make a change here. Maybe this comes in. And let's see, does that come in here and go a little quicker like this? No, not really. I don't like that either. Let's kind of go back and make this change here. That did that. Oh, I got it. Let's change the tempo here, right and left. So we had one doing this. Let's bring this line in, kick it back. And again, here, now let's do this. Keep this shape nice and simple. Come off at 9 degrees. Much better. That's much better. It makes more sense. And I'm not sure about this guy too. I'm really not. Let's get rid of that guy. Just maybe this becomes just a surrounding sidewalk that comes out of this thing and gives us a return into this. That makes more sense. So then this comes right into this. So this all becomes hardscape inside here. This becomes water. It becomes hardscape all the way around the form. This goes water, and I think that really helped. It's just kind of, it's a little odd, but yeah, I think things to look at here. Maybe just to get them breathing on top of this thing. What do you think, gang? There it is. Just a real quick pass at it here. And maybe this shape does the same thing. Maybe this thing comes around and picks up here and curls into this. And then that comes up a little higher and returns. Let's see what that looks like. I don't know. Interesting. What do you think, gang? Worthwhile? Yeah, the inside, no doubt. It's a very, 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 very transparent. And again, maybe it's a case too. Maybe another study down below here would take this shape and just kind of twist it and then shape glass to glass and see what that does. Get rid of the organic look here altogether. But that's a start at least. I think something we can work with here. Let's get this trees in place, and that's that. That goes to tree. All these are trees up in top here. This is all hardscape here, so we can make that kind of definition here. Let's clear up that down just for a moment here, pardon me. And we'll get rid of this guy. I'm just going to clean this up just a bit here, so we can see what we're dealing with here. Interesting. Just looking at the possibilities here. Let's get rid of this guy. Okay, so there it is. That comes in. If we break this up, oh, I know what I did. That's not right. Let's get this all, let's modify this so we do this correctly. So there I am here. Let's get this to go almost symmetrical. There it is, that's better. That goes better. Let's change some of the shapes here. All right, now we need to go. I've got to come back in through there. Now, what do you think? How did we get in? Right in through here. That might be the entryway here. Just to take a peek at the same. Let's do this. I don't know, that changes quite a bit here. So the shapes are very, very soft and organic. That's a start. That's interesting. Good stuff. Maybe a little bit more bullet form with the other end too. Maybe this is a little bit more pronounced. A little healthier. I'm going to stop right there. I mean, that's just kind of a first pass at that. Again, this page in number 3 here. I'm trying to pick up this piece, or that piece rather, into that organization here. So we'll see what happens here. Maybe it's a case of I'll go back in and analyze these two shapes. Maybe we kind of condense them a little bit, and maybe it's much more of keeping it more of an asymmetrical. We go the other way with this thing. Maybe this side gets a lot bolder. And this side, nope. Let's take a chance here. Ah. Okay. What do you think? There's a plan view. Yeah, I think you're right. Regarding this one, you think, Michael? I mean, on terrace, yeah, a bit too balanced. What about this? Have a little more impact to it. We kind of wrap this thing over a little bit. That's kind of some interesting things. We actually take that clamshell and actually work with it. What do you think? Tricky balance is right. I mean, that'd be a little bit. I think this is going to take some real thought in terms of getting this translation to work for us here. It's definitely not that one, that's for sure. But I do think that we've got something to kind of work with both of these, this one and this one exactly. Very interesting. So maybe this guy is a combination of what we're doing here and this one. So that could be pretty close. So let's see what happens here. Well, guys, I really appreciate the time here. What do you think? Before I wrap it up, before I head out, is this making some pretty good sense for us here, guys? Shadow and Terrace, thank you so much for joining me here. What do you think about this last, just a start as a plan view study here? Maybe this is all glass, and maybe that's all shrouded, and this might be all glass, or else we kind of recess a little bit here. Got to get the work for us here. I was referring to the top sketch. The bottom one certainly does not suffer the same issue. Yeah, I agree. All this from a piece of paper. Yeah, isn't that amazing? That's what's great about the whole process, Antares. You take this thing and you have a first blush at it here. Let's go back to this guy. This is where it all starts. Taking the adventure of getting into something like this, we actually take that shape and say, oh, here's the paper sculpture. This is where we started. And look what happens when you go down the line in terms of adding some of the geometry to it. And again, the purpose of today's whole stream was to make sure that once we get these guys down, We picked 3 selections. It might not be the greatest, but now we have something that's really interesting to work with. Is now we have now adjusted some, we revised some, and we kind of sophisticate a little bit, but we can still massage a little bit. So maybe for next week, I'm going to go back and keep looking at these things and get some good feedback on where we are. But I think this one's got some possibilities. This is a little bit too common. Trying to make that thing work in terms of this whole that sketch here. This one off of that. But I think this one here has a lot of potential, especially if we bring those spears in here. Maybe bring that shape. Maybe we bring this shape right through, and then we put those spears on top of this form, and kind of a little more character to it. So anyhow, any closing remarks, Shadow or and Terrace, before we head out there? Yeah, all this from a form from a piece of paper. Absolutely correct. And I think a lot of it has to do with old age too. That's me. So, but I'm inspired by the fact that it opens up your thinking process, gives you a real opportunity to kind of really develop yays and nays, good things and bad things. But it tells a story, and I think that's the thing that's unique about it all. It tells a great story. Not these sketches are great, but it tells a story, and we can take it from there. So, thank you so much for joining me here today. We're going to pick it up next week with the same thing. I'm going to stay in this whole mode for another week about getting revisions down and making sure we get some good, healthy pieces for all 3. And then maybe we'll pick up final selection and get us some really good perspective studies. So thank you so much, gang. And Shadow, I hope you're feeling better. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. I know you've not been feeling well. And Terrace, once again, I cannot thank you enough for the kind remarks you made in terms of the first pass of sketches from a week ago. Just absolutely amazing. So it's just interesting how it all comes together. So thank you for your help. Your input was incredibly valuable to put this program on today. Let's see. I like the top sketch too. The simple silhouette is nice, but perhaps the interior shapes are a bit similar altogether. It's amazing. The process is amazing. Once you begin to capture what this whole idea about empathy does, whether it's product architecture, automobile, it opens up the avenue of thinking. I don't want to be redundant here, but it does. It just expands your vocabulary tremendously. You take chances. You don't see things that you would with a traditional approach. So all the best, gang. Thank you so much. And Shadow, I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. We're working on a website. We've got some sketches to look at for you to evaluate. And Terrace, and once again, thank you. If you have any comments today from these sketches, fire them away. You're always welcome to add that input. It's really, really appreciated. So thanks for taking the time. And I'll be with you next Wednesday with the same thing. We're going to maybe phase 3, refining again. Just before we, I don't want to jump too quickly into a nice set of final sketches here, but I really think I want to give empathy its just due. Empathy, analyze, realize it, and then materialize it. So take it from there. So thanks, gang. Please take a minute to visit my website at drcontrast.com. That'd be great to look at. We're going to make some changes here. Thank you very much, and Terrace, thank you for being great too. You did a tremendous job. Salute, Doc. Likewise, all the best. And if you have any notes, drop me a note, and Terrace at jim@drcontrast.com. It'd be great to get feedback from you again. And later on, if Dakota you're watching, all the best to you. We'll touch base soon. And I always leave with this little thought in mind, and I think it's very, very helpful. Never forget to dare to remember to be great, because you are. All the best, gang. We'll see you next Wednesday. Have a great weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.